it has been good to me this time around. Things were they were bound to change when it was found. Sugar never tasted sweeter on my lips. My heart is now intact, and I can find no rest. This is love, yeah, love. Never known true love before. Seen so many counterfeits that left me on the floor. This is love, yeah, love. All will come to go two ways. Time it cannot know the bounds, and error don't dictate.
Well, a very good afternoon to you. Welcome to Xandermonium, the talk show that gets you talking. I'm your host, Xander Gibb, and coming up on today's show, we will be breaking down some of this week's hottest topics with my good friend Swoop from the radio show Swoop Swoopsworld, who is covering for Ty this week. And we will also be taking your calls. More to come in a mere moment. You can interact with us during the show in the chat room at the bottom of the show page. Keep scrolling down. Now, if it doesn't let you comment or contribute, that's because you have to join, and you can do that very simply by clicking either Facebook or Twitter so it can link your account. Now, you can also call us on 347-884-9061. That's 347-884-9061. Or on Twitter, you can tweet us. Oh, yes, we have all the mud comms here. My Twitter handle is @XanderGibb, XanderGibb, capital X, capital G. And you can also tweet Swoop. And Swoop's Twitter handle is @SwoopsWorld, SwoopsWorld. Make sure you follow Swoop if you're not following him, and tell him that Xander sent you. Tweet me if you're too shy, and I will make your point for you. Now, there's still a chance to vote in our poll at xandergibb.com. The poll this week, the question is, should Dentist the Lion Hunter be extradited to Zimbabwe to face charges? Now, you can go and vote there. The voting will be open for another 20 minutes, and we will give you the results before the end of the show. I promise I won't forget this time. Or you can actually give us a call. Tell us how you feel about the guy that killed the lion, the dentist of death, as he's being described. You can also call us about any other topic you want to get off your chest on this number, 347-884-9061. That's 347-884-9061. Call us on any subject you want to talk to us about. You don't have to agree. We don't have to agree, but you do have to be polite or else. So let me bring on our guest co-host for today. Swoop is the host of Swoop Swoopsworld, a weekly radio show of which I have been a guest before, and he joins us today to share his unique perspective. So without further ado, I give you the one, the only, Mr. Keith Swoop Lewis. Welcome back to the show, Swoop. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it, man.
It's always a pleasure to have you. How's your week been? What of all the world's happenings this week has actually jumped out at you?
Well, the week's been great for me. It's always, I try to enjoy each day as best I can. And, there's so many things happening in the world, that jump out at you. And one of the other things is the things that don't jump out. Sometimes I think that we are in a state of wag the dog. I think that the media gets us all in a frenzy over things that really don't matter, while there's so many things in the world that really do matter.
For sure. For sure, yeah. I think we tend to, I don't know about you, but I think that most people tend to only be interested in things that are going to affect them, or are going to affect them kind of like immediately, and they forget to actually look at the things that are impending, that will affect us all long term, because they're not affecting us right now.
Well, yeah, and one of the things is, and I listen. First of all, I'm gonna have to. Xander, you know how it is when you talk on radio and stuff. Make your point across. You have to set up disclaimers before people jump all over you. I do not understand trophy hunting one bit at all. I understand I understand hunters who hunt for their own food and whatnot. I don't understand big game trophy hunters. That being said, all of the press that this got this week and last week, when there were so many other horrendous things going on that don't get press, I just don't understand it. I just don't understand it at all.
No, absolutely, and we talked about this on the show last week. And the thing is, it's abhorrent what he did, but there are things that are equally, or if not more abhorrent, going on every day in the world, and people don't get that upset about it. I mean, whether your stance is pro-choice or pro-life, we can't ignore the fact that every day, babies are actually killed in this country, but nobody mounts big campaigns to actually do anything about that. But what I did find particularly concerning was that it's one thing to name and shame someone on social media when they've done something that's bad or something that we don't consider to be particularly nice, but when they start sharing people's addresses and calling for them to be fired for a decision that they've made, I kind of get worried about that, because let's face it, we're all human, we all make mistakes, and I wouldn't want someone publishing my home address because of something that I'd said or done or had an opinion. And obviously this is not the first time this guy has done that, but I still don't think he should have been treated the way that he was. And if they're going to extradite him to Zimbabwe to face trial, that's okay, but it's like we've tried him in social media already and found him guilty, and we want people to know where he lives too. Not you and I, obviously, but, the royal we.
Well, yeah, and I think that's one of the things that it just been really bothersome to me for the last few years. It's the whole the thing we do with the social media. I mean, there's so many good things that can come out of social media. So many good things have come out of social media. But this thing where if you disagree with someone, flat out just disagree with someone, you get shamed. They publicize your personal information. Things get released that I don't understand why they get released in certain instances. Realistically, it's really we're seeing a lot of people find glee in tearing people down, and none of us are without fault. If we talk about this guy. Listen, apparently this guy has done some shady things in the past where he's, killed an animal and then drug it into a place where it would be legal to kill, and they determined that he drug it, out of the way to do it. But my question about, and that was here in the U.S. where he had no guide, he was out on his own doing his own thing. My understanding in Zimbabwe, which has a whole lot of other problems there, civil unrest and things like that. I think the people who live there are less concerned about this lion than they are about their own lives. But I think there he had a guide, and I don't understand anything about this type of. I'm not involved in this type of activity, but I understand when you have a guide, it's the guide's job to know where you're legal and where you're not, and what the rules of that area are and whatnot. So even though I don't think this guy is a saint, I'm trying to find out how do we condemn him right out of the gate when he hired people who work there, live there, and do this for a living.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of hypocrisy attached to this as well, and apparently the Zimbabwe government are calling for sanctions and things like this. But let's face it, it's Zimbabwe that have been making the money for it, and you're absolutely right. You would expect that the person that's organizing the hunt to know the local laws. I mean, I still, aside of all of this, I still think it's totally abhorrent. I understand if you live in a rural area and you kill for food, I don't like the idea of animal cruelty, but it's been part of our society for hundreds and thousands of years that some people kill for their food. And if you're going to kill something and you don't eat it and you're just going to mount its head on the wall, to me that seems kind of barbaric to do that and then expect people to like it. You know, I saw on Facebook today there's a meme that's going around about people that keep trinkets and trophies from their kills are also called serial killers, which I thought was quite an interesting concept on the issue.
Well, yeah, like you said, I don't get the whole trophy killing. I don't understand it. I never will understand it. And I do know people who hunt for meat and hunt. That's their choice of knowing exactly where their food comes from and feeling that that's the right way to go about getting it, as opposed to pretending you don't know where it comes from and walking into a grocery store and not knowing where it comes from. But
right.
This whole trophy killing thing, I don't get it. I don't understand it. And but the flip side of that is realistically, I don't have to get it. I don't have to understand it. I don't have to like it. If it's legal someplace and the person who's there doing it legally, then that's so be it. Change. Amount of thing to change the laws. If this guy was in the wrong because his guides led him astray, then I don't see where he needs to be outed and shamed and whatnot if he was doing something which is illegal activity. If he was part of a conspiracy or something like that, then they need to, if they're going to try him. I don't know that we didn't extradite Polanski. There's people who've done some real horrible things to other human beings.
For sure.
He could be wanted there and never be able to set foot there. If the government's going to spend money into tracking him down and turning him over, we got bigger fish to fry right now, so to speak.
For sure. Kathy in the chat room made a very interesting point about, and I'm paraphrasing a little. Let me just kind of go back. She said, where are we? She said, I'm getting there. I get why people are so upset, but nobody went this crazy when it was Trayvon. And I totally see that point. And why do you think in society, Swoop, that we have that some people hold animals in more esteem than people? Because even just kind of like as part of the chain, the evolutionary chain, people should be of more importance, but more importance has been placed on the death of one lion than was placed by some people on the death of a singular human being.
This is long standing in our country. Michael Vick, he was involved in dog fighting and some dogs got killed behind that, and people wanted to lynch him, basically. I mean, he went to prison behind it, and still that wasn't good enough for people. But then yet, somebody gets killed or murdered or whatnot, and we go about our daily business a day or two later. I don't get that whole aspect of it. A lot of I had a discussion with somebody recently, and they were talking about hunters, hunting for food, and why they thought that was wrong. And I said, well, I mean, if you really care about the circle of life, then you would frown upon other animals that eat meat that don't that kill other animals. I mean, when it comes to just killing and mistreating of animals, and we see the write-ups about this and the uproar and the protesting about this, and we see people being mistreated daily. I mean, I saw a story in the news, I believe it was this morning, about some woman somewhere who had her 14-year-old and a younger kid in cages. That was just a bleep on the news. I bet you don't hear anything else about it. The rest ever. They said they found her mistreating these two kids. They were in cages. They had mental disorders. She was a meth head and whatnot. And the story was so short and up and over with. They would still be referencing last week. They were still referencing the lion throughout the news. So I don't know.
Right.
I don't understand at all.
I think on the media's behalf, there is definitely a whole world of sensationalizing that goes on with these stories, and I think it's kind of sad that whether a story gets covered and how much attention it gets is based upon how much it can be sensationalized rather than the actual facts of the case. But I think, do you think that speaks into where we are as a human race right now?
I think it speaks to a lot of things. First of all, I think it's the old saying, the squeaky wheel gets the grease. I think that there's a lot of organizations, a lot of animal rights organizations and whatnot, that they bang the drum loudly. And once the story gets legs, the news runs with it. And it's all about how you frame it. You talk about this beloved lion that everybody loved, and this horrendous guy who's made all these hunts and whatnot and things like that, and it's all in how they frame it. And that's one of the things that I have a difficulty with a lot of stories that come out. I'll read a story that I'm interested in, not necessarily about this, but then it goes from story to more of an opinion piece, because there's too much of that writer's slant to it. And I understand everybody has an opinion, but I'm from an era, I believe, I think I am, that where the press used to tell the story as is, and you decide. And,
right.
Now it's, you read a story and you think you have all the facts, and you don't have all the facts. You have half the facts that make this guy's point or this woman's point come across in a way they want it to come across. And I'd rather have all the facts, and if all the facts aren't in, say so. When you, I know you have a deadline, you have a story to write, but say all the facts aren't in yet, but this is what we know so far.
I kind of think it's okay to state your opinion when you're writing an article, and a lot of the things that I write, I put in my opinion, but I actually make clear that it's my opinion and not fact, because that's where things get blurred, and a lot of news outlets, on both sides of the political spectrum, are so known for putting their spin on a story, but when I first started doing this show nearly 3 years ago, one of the things that I insisted upon with the content was that I would work on the facts, and then we would use the opinion as the kind of vehicle for getting the discussion going, rather than the other way around. Because it's one thing to have an opinion, but if it's not based upon the facts, then what's the point?
I agree, and I'm with you on that. If a person's going to put their opinion in a story, just state it as your opinion, and you know what, you don't even have to say this is my opinion. I think the way you state things, it comes across. On our show, when we tell a story or write about a story or speak about a story, we'll tell you what part of the story, and it's obvious to the listener where the story ends and our opinion begins. And
right.
I think in our format, that's what people expect. They tune in to hear our take on things. And I mean, that's how we promote it. Next up, we're going to give you our take on this week in sports or this week in the news and stuff like that. So we'll tell you the story, and then we'll discuss it, and it's obvious what we're discussing are our opinions. And I see nothing wrong with that. I just hate when I go to a news story, a news outlet, or a news byline, and the story is written in such a way that you could take it as fact. And there's certain things that pop in there that you'll say, oh, okay, this is basically an opinion piece. Certain statements to be made.
It's not accidental, though, is it, Swoop? I don't think that they report their opinion as facts by accident. That's exactly what they're trying to do. It's not like they've done it just by mistake. That's clearly their intention to purport their opinions as fact. I'm kind of very in the middle politically right now, and I get kind of pissed with both sides of the aisle, and I'm equally critical. But I actually think that you have to be, because if you're so tunnel visioned about any subject that you can't see anything but your kind of either your party's view on a subject or even your group that you belong to, I think we always need to be open to that discussion and assessment of any topic, because otherwise I think we've lost the plot, really.
Well, here's the thing, and I said this many times. I said it to friends in discussions, and I said it, on our show. People, especially when you talk politically, when they speak as if whatever side of the aisle they stand on does no wrong, they're disingenuous. I mean, you're in lifelong relationships with people that you claim to love and marry, and you disagree all the time. Yet people you don't know, you never met, are getting on stage and making statements about things. And I cannot believe you agree with that 100%. And we've seen it. We've seen political parties rail against the person in charge's policy when they're not in office, and then their guy comes up and presents the same policy, and both sides flip. This is the most ignorant thing I've ever seen. This is the greatest thing I've ever seen. And you go, well, 4 years ago, you guys are on opposite sides of the same exact situation. And that's one of the things I dislike about the politics, and I dislike about the two-party system, is it's become so, this is and we've got to the point where we don't discuss things. If you don't agree with me, you're a racist, or you're a homophobe, or you're this, or you're that, or this. And so how do we advance? How do we advance?
For sure, and I totally agree with you on that. I've written extensively on that very subject. I don't know how we got to that point where if you disagree, then you're a hater. But it really has kind of like become that kind of ideology. And I know for me personally, it makes me more careful about what I put out there, whether it be on a talk show or in an article or just, in my everyday life. It's unfortunate, but you have to be so clear nowadays about what you're saying, or people will term you as a hater, and that is a worry, because I don't hate anybody, and I would never want my commentary to be taken in that way. There are some people, and there are some groups and types of people that I severely dislike, but I try not to generalize. If you meet one person from France and they're rude to you, doesn't mean every French person is rude. Okay, bad example. but you kind of what I mean.
Oh, absolutely, and it's interesting. We've done our show for about 6 years now, and we've always been in a situation where during the breaks we'll discuss something, really have a great discussion about things, and then I say, let's talk about what's going on, and sometimes we go, nah, we probably shouldn't say this or say that, and I got to the point now where I really don't give a rip. It's it's my opinion. I'm not getting paid for this. I don't have any higher ups that I got to answer to. If I want to, and you're listening to my show, and if you don't like it, don't listen.
For sure.
I don't think we're jerks, but I think I should be able to express my opinion, and I think the three of us should be able to express our opinions. If we disagree with each other, we disagree, which we do off the air. And if we agree, we agree. And if you disagree, you have a right to call in or get us on the chat line or tweet us and say you guys suck. But there's really no way to advance any cause or to better ourselves if we don't have a good, clear, honest discussion without hating on each other and with a whole lot of vitriol.
Yeah, and I think I don't know. I don't think it's right now. I don't think it's getting any better, and I think that you only see this when you take a step back, because for me the concern is if you are so set in your ways on your opinion, if you're not even open to discussion that you're so set in your ways, that's kind of a worry, because I don't think we should ever be afraid to disagree. I remember during the Bush administration, if you disagreed with anything that Bush said, and obviously Bush was a white guy, so you couldn't say it was racist, but if you didn't agree with something he said, you were unpatriotic. And I never got that either. Surely if a policy is faulty or somebody does something you don't agree with, then you have the right to say that. And I think that there's been an element of that with this administration too. You couldn't just agree with anything that Obama said or did, because then you were a racist. And I never saw that ideology. And I think particularly when you're not a hater, you are even more incensed when people suggest that you might be, just because you have a certain opinion about something.
Well, yeah, I frequently say, I got a lot of faults, but so if you're gonna fault me for something I've really done. Don't accuse me of being this and that when you're totally off base just because you don't like what I had to say.
Absolutely.
And I don't understand why we've got to this point where groups are supposed to fall in line and all believe the same thing. If you're black, you're supposed to believe one way. If you're gay, you're supposed to believe one way. If you're, white, you're supposed to believe one way. And it's this whole thing where I thought we're supposed to be in a society where we can all kind of maneuver around each other, enjoy each other's company, and have opinions and disagreements, and still graciously get along and be neighbors and whatnot. And why everybody's expected to believe the same thing, walk the same way, talk the same way. That, to me, that doesn't sound like a happy place to be. I mean, if I have to believe everything my neighbor believes and think everything my neighbor thinks and worship the same way my neighbor worships, I don't see that as a happy place to be. It seems more like a dictatorship to me.
Yeah, for sure, because we live in, if we live in countries where we're allowed to have an opinion, why can't we disagree?
Exactly.
That's kind of my point. I want to, talking of disagreeing, I want to move on a little bit now to another topic, and funnily enough, that the chat room has kind of led it towards this. So, as you're probably aware, this week the GOP debate occurred, and Trump and the top popular Republicans, yes, there are still some popular Republicans, the candidates who were gathered to allegedly discuss the issues. And whilst I was left knowing very little more about any of the candidates or their convictions, and I'm talking about political convictions, of course, not any other kind, I do, however, get the confirmation that the Donald still hates Rosie O'Donnell, and that's the biggest information I got from him. Now, the moderators didn't pull any punches and probe the candidates with everything but an anal probe. And Trump clearly had no intention of actually directly answering any of the questions and attempted to joke his way to the top of the Republican presidential nomination field. And the topics covered included immigration, abortion, foreign policy, especially around Iran, and race relations. Trump, of course, inevitably stood out with a pout that could wipe out a nation. His boorish comments about women, his slurs against Mexican immigrants, his previous Democratic allegiances, his past description of himself as pro-choice, and his donation to Hillary Clinton's campaign all became issues. Now, I don't know if you watched the debate, Swoop, but I did. I caught most of it, and I came away thinking, what the hell was that all about?
Well, here's interesting. It's the most watched, I believe it was the most watched debate in history, and probably one of the most watched shows. And I think it was higher rated than the sixth game of the NBA Finals this year, which was pretty highly rated. But there were several things. I watched a lot of it. I watched the first one than I did the second one. But a couple of things of note, I thought. First of all, was the whole thing about Donald Trump. The reason Donald Trump, in my opinion, was getting so much press and getting so many, getting that high rating to start with, is because he was saying a lot of things that people want to hear politicians discuss. But he didn't discuss them. See, he, prior to going into the election, into the debate, he said a lot of things, some of them controversial, but things that people want to hear politicians discuss head on. Right. One of the things I found interesting is he can't take tough questioning. He's been railing on Twitter about Megyn Kelly since then. the moderators hit everybody
sure.
hard. They made everybody answer to things they've said in their past, done in their past, whether you're a Huckabee or anybody else up on that stage. There was a question. Bush got some tough questions. They all got tough questions, and it all dealt with things they said in their past. And if he fails to step up to the plate and answer to what he said about women, and it wasn't just Rosie O'Donnell, my understanding. Everybody knows he had that big war with Rosie O'Donnell. And the thing is, you know what? Okay, that's kind of, you guys are both talk show people, whatnot. But if you're gonna run for president, the way it works. People are going to dig into your stuff and want you to answer for things you've done in your past. So he should have, prepared for that question and not be whining now that Megyn Kelly was a bully, and he's called her name since then. He's called her bimbo and this, that, and the other. He obviously has a problem with women, and especially women who challenge him.
Right. Absolutely. I think the thing is. Primarily with Donald Trump is that he doesn't. I mean, he might be a wonderful businessman and might have made lots of money, and that would be, good financial control would be great in a president. But that alone is not enough, because he's got no. He cannot deal with conflict. And he's got no decorum. And can you imagine somebody representing these United States on the world stage and him getting that bitchy and nasty with someone he disagreed with? Because he has no tact and he has no diplomacy. And yes, there's been an issue with immigration in this country for 25 to 30 years. But the country has actually caused that problem. They've had all of these loopholes, and they've had all of these ways for people to overstay their visas and to get into the country and stay here. But that's because the immigration system has been broken for so long. I mean, I've known people that weren't born in the United States that are wonderfully qualified and would be absolutely great additions to our country, but because of the way that things were set up, they couldn't get a job because they didn't have a visa, and they couldn't get a visa because they didn't have a job. So it was all very circular, and this situation of 11 million plus, or however many is immigrants, illegal immigrants in the country, is an issue that the United States has created itself by not dealing with it. And 8 years ago, one of President Obama's issues he was standing on was that he was going to deal with immigration, and frankly, even his response to the immigration issue was not very final. Just to allow some people to not get deported. What about the people that didn't have children that were in the country illegally? Now, I don't know where you stand on immigration, but surely a more final approach is needed, on that issue alone.
Well, yeah, we do need a final approach. My stand on most things are we have laws and abide by those laws. There are a lot of good people that are here that waited a long time to get here. They stood in line, and I know some of them. I have some friends that immigrated here and went through the process, or the parents immigrated here, and they went through the process, and they had to have a sponsor, and they had to have this, and they had to have that. And the people that I've talked to that I've known who've immigrated here or had family who immigrated here are more upset about the U.S.'s policies than anybody, because they did all the right things. They took the time to get here, and they get here legally, and they look at people who have come without going through the process, just basically cutting in line because they have other family members who want to get here. You're right. The government holds a big shame in this. They should have done something. They need to do something and figure it out. And once again, we've let other people change the narrative of this. I understand that parents may be here illegally and the kids are born here legally. You know what? My parents, if they picked up and moved or had to move or whatever, and I was a minor, I'd have to go with them. No matter the fact that I was born in California, I was a Californian, whatever. If my parents decided they were going to pick up and move to Utah, I didn't have a choice. I would have had to get up and go to Utah. If I was 18, fine, I could legally stay wherever I wanted. So this whole thing, and they say, oh, we're splitting up families. No, you're not, because if you're a minor, and that seems to trump everything else. You're still a legal citizen. If you're not living in this country, you're born in this country, you're still a legal citizen. There's lots of legal citizens living abroad, and they come and go as they please. So if the parents are here illegally and they get deported, well, then the kids will have to go with them unless they have an aunt or uncle or some legal resident here that's willing to let them stay. That's the thing. But we make it sound this horrible thing. Oh my God, you're trying to split a family. Nobody's trying to split a family. They're trying to fix the law. Fix the law. I don't know what you're going to do at this point, but that's the situation.
Right. I mean, I don't think either side of this argument, this situation, for want of a better term, are ever going to agree. But I know the things that other countries have done, like England, when they did an amnesty, they said, we're going to draw a line here. Anyone who's in the country illegally, we'll give you paperwork. We'll give you a path to naturalization, but you have to do A, B, C, and D. And anyone we find after this point will be subject to the whatever they're subject to after this. However, where it fell apart with England is that then a few years later they did a second amnesty, which to me defeats the object, because you should never have more than one amnesty. Because if you have one amnesty and then keep doing amnesties, it defeats the purpose. If they put out an edict today and said, everyone who's illegal in the United States of America, we will give you citizenship or a path to citizenship. You'll be able to stay here. You'll be able to work, but you have to pay taxes and learning the language. And then in a couple of years did the same thing. What has that actually achieved? Because the whole idea should be to deter any further acts of illegal immigration, and you don't achieve that by giving more than one amnesty, surely.
Well, I guess the same way people felt when they bought the first tickets to Cher's farewell tour. Yeah. How many farewell tours did you have?
Great point. This is the final show ever for Cher until the next one.
Yeah.
Exactly.
No,
exactly.
I totally agree with you. I mean, if you're going to have an amnesty, you set a time limit on it, and once that time is over, then things need to fall into place. But then you have a second and a third and fourth. And there's really no reason to stop the behavior, because you might catch the next amnesty.
Exactly, and I think that saying, part of the ideology of an amnesty is that we want people to come out of the shadows. We want to know who's here, because I'm sure there are some among those illegals, and I'm choosing my words very in a non-Trumpish way, that are involved in terrorist activities and don't love the United States as much as you and I, and so getting everybody out of the shadows and paying taxes, for me, is kind of like a positive and beneficial thing. But I don't think it's any good to say, we're going to fine you and make you pay back taxes, because why would anyone want to come out of the shadows if they thought they were going to get a fine or pay back taxes? For some people, obviously, it's worth the risk. But clearly, clearly the immigration issue is not going to go away, and it's just one of the things that kind of like reared its head during this debate. But let me ask you, could you vote for Donald Trump, Swoop?
No, and for a variety of reasons, but there's so many reasons. But the thing is, with I don't like his behavior when he's challenged.
Right.
And I really don't like the way he's. I understand. When somebody has a disagreement with an individual, I don't take that as a disagreement or being derogatory to all individuals of that ilk or gender or whatnot. But he seems to be having a little track record there when it comes to women and the name calling.
Right.
fine, true. He had a thing with Rosie O'Donnell. I wouldn't have said he's got problems with all women, but the more you look into it, and the things he's said about the moderator since then, and apparently other things before that, well, maybe he does have a problem with women. And you know what? If you're going to lead our nation, you have to be inclusive. The people within this nation. And he's just, I like what his process and the thing for me is he was going to, what he did was made politicians have to discuss things that they don't normally like to discuss in an open forum.
Right.
Other than that, he serves no purpose as far as a seat in our political climate. Other than,
sure.
But anybody can do that. But he's got the voice. I like the fact that he doesn't need any, he doesn't need any PAC funds and all that kind of stuff. On paper, as an individual, not necessarily Donald Trump, you say, okay, here's somebody who doesn't have to be holding to the PAC. He's out there. He says what he means. He says what he feels. We can decide on this or that. But the other part of his behavior and whatnot, no, not so much. He's not. He wouldn't work for me. And I think there's a lot he has to learn about just the world. I mean, he's a good business person, and there's places in cabinets for people with a lot of business experience, but I don't think he belongs on anybody's cabinet either. And he's too narcissistic about it. The thing is, when you are campaigning as a part of a political process and part of a political party, the rule of thumb is you don't get the nomination. You either throw your hat behind the guy in your party that gets the nomination, or you just step back. He's already exploring a third party candidacy.
Yeah.
And I don't really care that much about you believe these things in the past. You gave money to this person in the past. I kind of like people who aren't lockstep. This way or the highway. I think as we grow, throughout our lives. The opinions I had about things in my 20s, not necessarily the same opinions I have about things now. So I don't fault people for that, So that part doesn't really bother me. Go ahead.
I mean, for me, go on. Sorry, I interrupted you.
No, I was rambling. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that, I really can't fault him on that because what that does say, if we fault him on that, is that we shouldn't be allowed to evolve. I was a lifelong Democrat until a few years ago, and I would refer to myself as a libertarian now. But some people have said, Xander is a flip-flopper. Xander says one thing and then does another. But this is not just like I believe one thing one day and then the next day I believe something else. This has happened over a period of time. So if Xander Gibb is allowed to evolve, then why is I'm not his fiercest advocate, but why shouldn't Donald Trump be allowed to evolve too? But when you assess that in tandem with everything else, like his ideologies about women, his ideologies about Mexicans, I mean, yes, a Mexican illegal immigrant raped and killed and whatever it was that they did. But does that mean every Mexican immigrant, illegal or not, is that way? And it's the generalizations that I object to. Like you said earlier, not all gay people are one way, not all black people are one way, not all Muslims are one way, or you know what I mean? There's no generalization allowed, really, because generalizations just don't work.
No, generalizations don't work. Maybe I didn't catch the first time he said what he said about the immigration thing, but let me clarify. I don't think the Mexican government is sending people here. I do think what he said the one time I heard him was that a lot of the illegals that are here have a criminal element to them, and and that is a true statement. That's not saying all do. That's not saying the majority do. There are a lot. That is true. There are a lot. It's a lot. Anytime you have open borders or whatnot, or I think during the 70s or something, there's a big influx of what they call the Marielitos from Cuba to Florida, And it was determined that a lot of those people were being released from the Cuba's prisons and sent to us. So, and that was done by the Cuban government. So a lot of times, when we get a big influx of people within the hundreds and thousands or whatever, there is a large section of people who are coming who have a criminal element to them. That's not saying that all people do or the majority of people do. I don't know that that's what he said initially, and I didn't hear it initially. And he may have been trying to clean it up the time I heard it. But at the time I heard it, he kind of made that a little bit clearer than I think most people are giving him credit for. And like I said, I got no dog in the trees. I wouldn't vote for this guy, at all. But I just kind of want to hear what he had to say, because I think it made people think about a lot of things. And
right.
I don't know if he meant all initially, because I didn't hear the initial statement. Mm-hmm.
But I actually, one thing that he has been saying that I totally agree with is this. He's been saying the political correctness is killing our country, and I totally agree. However, but for me, that's no excuse for rudeness, and it detracts from the point that we're trying to make. He is using that statement as an excuse for being rude to people. See, because we don't have to agree with everybody, but we have to show an element of empathy or compassion to their situation. I would want that in a president. I don't want a president ruling these United States and not being as inclusive as possible. Because the thing is, you might be a Christian or you might be whatever you are, but if you're running the country and you have a multi-representative community that you're leading, you have to make sure you include the needs of all those people, not just the ones that you agree with. Surely, or am I being too idealistic?
No, I mean that's the goal of leadership, right? You want to lead. You want people to join you in this cause. You want to be open to other people's opinions and ideas, and try to figure out what's best for your country or our country. And that's what you want out of somebody. And you want people to be inclusive, and you don't want people to feel that they're not included in your thought process and your policies and whatnot. And he absolutely is not. And he's shown it over and over. And I think that they're two separate things. You're right. He's using that statement that we're too politically correct as an excuse to be rude. I think we're too politically correct because it doesn't allow people to have open discussions, not necessarily being rude. People have been rude whether they're politically correct or not politically correct, but being politically correct is limiting, I believe, our ability to discuss openly different issues about different people. Here's a prime example. Is the whole Caitlyn Jenner thing. Okay, whether or not Caitlyn Jenner should have won an ESPY award. I've heard people talk about, the Olympics in '76, I believe, now they're saying when Caitlyn won the gold medal. Caitlyn didn't win the gold medal. Bruce Jenner won the gold medal. We had discussion on our show. I get flack for saying that Caitlyn didn't win the gold medal. Caitlyn is here and now. And even when I saw the interview with Caitlyn, she says, there was Bruce, and now there's Caitlyn. So, even if you disagree with me, let the person who's living that life tell you the same thing.
Right.
You had to kind of really be gentle on how you talk about this whole, thing. And one of the things was we discussed it, and I said, to me, nobody goes through this process just because. But I think the way it's being rolled out to us, in the fact that he's part of the whole Kardashian thing and that show and everything, it's almost like a reality show. And it's kind of really difficult to say, wow, I mean, this person's making this big step and going through this thing without looking at it kind of, as a real world type of thing,
Right. I mean, here, this is my take on the situation with Caitlyn Jenner. And it kind of goes a lot deeper than that for me. Here's the thing. I don't think that Caitlyn Jenner should have won that award for bravery because there were people that were far more worthy to receive it than Caitlyn was. I don't have an issue with trans people. You know, I'm a member of the LGBT community myself, even though people would wish that I wasn't. However, here's the thing for me about Caitlyn Jenner. What I really respect about Caitlyn Jenner is that she's using that platform to help other people. Every year in this country, I don't know the specific numbers, but there's a high percentage of young people that kill themselves because they're confused about their sex, their sexuality, and about who they are. And if Caitlyn Jenner can save one of those lives by talking about this and making it an issue, then I applaud her. And people are very critical of her right now. What if this is Caitlyn's American dream? Surely Caitlyn has that right to her American dream, even if that is changing her sex. And people will be shocked that I've said that, because how can changing your sex be an American dream? Surely wholeness is every American's dream. But where I do draw the line, and this really bothers me, I will always refer to you as what you identify yourself as. If you say, I'm a woman, and I know you were born a man, I will still refer to you as a woman. I will call you whatever name you ask me to call you. And to not do so is frankly rude. And I saw this other trans person called Zoe Tur, who was on Dr. Drew with Ben Shapiro, who's a conservative activist. And basically he was referring to this transgendered woman as he and referring to him in the masculine. Whatever you feel, whatever you believe, surely we need to at least be a little bit polite and compassionate to people, whether we agree or not.
Oh, I agree 100%. And one of the things another thing was that I had a little thing is back in the 70s, there was a tennis player, and this tennis player is trans, named Renee Richards, and she went through the process while she was a professional tennis player, and to me that was, you know, you're talking about the heroics of it, or we're talking, this person's already on the world stage, actively participating in their sport. To me, so many times we give a lot of credit to somebody today, but there's somebody who's paved the way for them back then. And I really thought it was a shame that Renee Richards was not getting mentioned in this whole conversation at all. And I know Tur used to be a TV news helicopter pilot here in LA. And they did a story about, I don't know what her name is now, but her transition, during this process too. And my point was, when you were saying, I agree, if somebody identifies himself in a certain way, I'm all for that. My discussion specifically dealt with the Olympics and today, and people are talking about, we should go back and change the thing in the Olympic Hall of Fame to Caitlyn. And even Caitlyn Jenner, when I saw her being interviewed on Diane Sawyer, spoke about Bruce and Caitlyn. Right. So there's a division within, the past was Bruce and the future is Caitlyn. The here and now and the future is Caitlyn. So I really don't understand going back and changing the name inside the Hall of Fame and all this kind of stuff. All this kind of discussion was coming up. To me, it makes no sense, because at the time, no matter how Bruce at the time felt on the inside, Bruce identified to the world as Bruce. Bruce competed in the men's event as Bruce and won the gold medal as Bruce. You could put a footnote on it. Bruce Jenner won the award, and now is Caitlyn Jenner or something like that. But going back and changing the name in the Hall of Fame, that discussion came up, and to me, it was ridiculous.
Absolutely, and you know, this is the thing for me. Lots of people are so critical. You know, I ask these people who are critical, how does it affect your life? Does the fact that Bruce Jenner had a sex change and is now called, well, a partial sex change, and is now called Caitlyn Jenner, does that impinge on your life in any way, shape, or form? And if the answer is no, then, you know, shut the F up, basically.
But isn't that true about most things, Xander? People get worked up and I mean, want to come to blows over things that have no effect on them. I mean, look at sporting events. A team wins a championship, a team that you have no part of other than you live in the city and buy their jersey, and you're outside jumping on police cars and starting fires and tipping over things because they won. I mean,
for sure,
it just makes no sense.
I think for some people it's just an excuse to be hateful, and you know. I'm a Christian or a Jew for Jesus, whatever you want to term it as. And one thing that I try and live by is that I might not agree with everything, but, you know, whilst trying to maintain the courage of my convictions as a Christian, I have to be compassionate because that's what my book teaches me. My book, the Bible, teaches me that whilst I might not agree with the things that some people are doing, I have to remain compassionate because whoever started these things about, you know, we should hate people because they're transitioning, we should hate people for being gay, knows nothing of God or Jesus or his teachings. So to do things in the name of religion is just astounding for me.
Well, you know, and another thing is you brought up a good point. Another thing is, though, is I find that a lot of people who, aren't religious, they will take the statements of we can all agree that there's wackos no matter what whatever it is you believe in religiously or politically or, you know, food-wise, you name it. There's wackos, you know, in all walks of life. And what you'll find is people will say, well, this person said this, and so all Christians are crazy because they all think that way.
Right.
And then that whole thing, like I mentioned earlier, where people are all lumped into supposedly thinking the same way, believing the same thing, and it doesn't allow for really an open discussion. You know, a lot of times, I don't know about you, but, you know, a lot of times I want to discuss something with somebody, and they'll say something that's really, and everybody has the right to be offended, but offensive based on what they believe that I believe. I really don't. I care less about finishing the discussion because I don't feel any need to defend my beliefs. I love to have an open discussion about just about anything, but I'm not going to argue with you about things, and especially if you already have this preconceived notion of who I am and what I am. Definitely not going to waste my time doing that with anybody. I used to, but now I kind of don't care if you agree with me, but if you're rude about me or about something, I will tell you because I kind of think that's my right to do so. We don't have to disagree, but I think we have to try and, you know, remain composed as a part of that. But I just wanted to, we're coming to the end now, but I just wanted to kind of come back to something you said. I consider myself to be a Christian, but I ain't religious. You know, for me, it's about my relationship with God, not conforming to religiosity. And for me, that's the difference. And I know a lot of people, the difference, and I know a lot of people are like that too. But I kind of think that, you know, inevitably, you believe what you want to believe. I have friends all across the spectrum, black, white, gay, straight, Buddhist, Muslim, Sikhs, and to me, what is important is if you're a nice person. I don't care what your thoughts and beliefs and leanings are.
It's about what you're like as a person first and foremost for me. But again, that's just my opinion.
I agree.
Absolutely, and that's actually a brilliant point to leave it at. But before we end, I want you to tell people a couple of things. I want you to tell people where they can find you, where your show is, what day it's on. So if you could do that first of all.
Absolutely. You could find Swoopsworld at swoopsworld.com. We're on Wednesday nights at 8 o'clock Pacific. And it's always archived. If you go to our site any day of the week, any time of the day, there's an old show planned. But we're live at 8 p.m., 8 o'clock Pacific, Wednesday nights, and it goes from, it's a 3-hour show, so 8 to 11 for us, and sometimes we run over a little bit. This week's guest is an author named Andrew Peterson, who's an outstanding author. He's got a new book coming out called Contract to Kill. If you're familiar with the Nathan McBride series, he's the author behind those, and one of them is going to be turned into a movie pretty soon. So we're looking forward to having him back on the show. And he's a great guest and a great author, and I think you'll tune in. And he's the first hour, and after that we do all kinds of other things.
Absolutely, and one thing I want you to share, if you can kind of do it succinctly, is because you wear several hats, don't you? You actually do something else as well as being a radio talk show host.
Yeah, thanks. I appreciate that, Xander.
I'm talking about your international assassin job.
Exactly. After I finish telling you about it, I'm going to have to kill you. No, actually, I'm a marketing director for a company called Juice Plus. We help people get more fruits and vegetables in their system, because as we all know, that the more fruits and vegetables you get, the better off your body is. Most chronic diseases is believed can be a big portion of the reason people get chronic diseases because they haven't had enough nutrients from raw, organically grown fruits and vegetables. So we have them in 3 ways people can get them. They can get the encapsulated version. We also have a vegan protein-based shake, and we also have what is called an aeroponic growing system called the Tower Garden, where you can grow your own 20 to 28 plants at a time, and it's just water and nutrients, and it takes about 10% of the water use to grow those plants than they would traditionally. And you can find out everything about that healthynewday.com. That's www.healthynewday.com. And during the course of that, occasionally I actually help people who want to do the same thing I do, learn how to do it, and create an additional source of income.
Absolutely, and maybe I'll talk to you outside of the show, but we'll people that come along and are guests and stuff on the show and the co-host, they get to sponsor the show, so maybe you can sponsor the show one week with your products, but we'll talk more about that. But it's been great talking to you today. I can't believe the time has gone so quickly as ever. But I hope you will come back again, and let's not leave it so long next time. It's always a pleasure to talk to you, but please join me in thanking Swoop from Swoopsworld for joining us today. Make sure you check him out on Facebook and Twitter, and check out his show, which is every Wednesday, 9 till 11 Pacific, 11 till 2 Eastern, and tell him that Xander sent you. So thanks again, Swoop, for joining us today, and you have a great weekend.
Thank you, Xander. Appreciate you having me on.
It's always a pleasure. Take care.
You too, brother.
Bye. That was indeed Keith Swoop Lewis. Make sure you check out Swoop's show every Wednesday, as I said, 9 till 12 even Pacific, and I can't think of the Eastern. It's just evaded me. So for those of you who are asking about Ty, Ty is still with us. Ty is taking some time out for school right now. He'll be back in the next couple of weeks. He is going to be back with us So make sure you go and say hi to him on Facebook and Twitter, and he will be happy to say hi to you. Thanks for joining us today. We will be back next Saturday, same time, same place. The TV show is starting again next month. More information to come about that, but make sure you check it out. You might be able to get it in your local area, but if you can't, you will be able to get it right after the TV show has been aired. So we're going to play you out now. What are we going to play? We're going to play you out with... What are we going to play you out with? Let me have a look. We're going to play you out with a little bit of this. This is a guy called Xander Gibb.
You're my ideal one.